right, we're going to go through this rather quickly. We're going to be wanting to create this fidget spinner, and you can see there's a main circle that houses the center bearing, and then we have what I'm going to call the arm, and then a head with a smiley face here. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start in millimeters, so if you want to get in the habit of going ahead and starting by clicking on this arrow and then selecting millimeters, in class we will be using millimeters because that's what our printer prints with. Right away we'll select anything that's in the drawing and delete it. So you can just click on it or draw a selection window with the pointer and then press the backspace. I like to use this center point as an anchor for my drawing so I can always find where the center point is. So I'm going to, whoops, that's in the way. Hold on a second. There we go. I'm going to select the circle tool to get started, and we're going to draw that center circle that is going to house our bearing. So we don't know exactly what size we're scaled into until we start drawing. So I'm going to click the origin to get started, and whenever you're drawing a circle, it's nice to snap to one of the axes. So you're going to be doing either the green or the red. And I'll show you why that matters in just a second. So I've just clicked one time to start my circle, and now I'm just kind of adjusting the size. And I want this to be a 22 millimeter circle all the way across. So the radius would be half of that. So it's 11 millimeters. So I'm going to type in 11 and press enter. And now I have my first circle. So eventually this is going to be empty space for my bearing. So I'm going to go ahead and just zoom in and orbit so I can look at this a little bit straight on here. Now I need one more circle, and this is going to define how much plastic surrounds the bearing. So I want it to be larger and at least 3 millimeters larger than the original circle. So 11 plus 3 would be 14. I'm going to make mine 15. So I'm going to type in 15. So from end to end, that's a 30 millimeter diameter circle. And then now that I have a exterior surface, I can use the selection tool, select the center circle, press the backspace to delete that. Now I have a nice donut shape. I'm going to go ahead and define each shape that I make by making a component. So I'm going to double click my donut here, and everything is outlined in blue. And then I'm going to right click and make component. And let's just go ahead and name this center circle. You can name it whatever you want. Okay, once I have that defined, I'm going to move on to my next object, which is going to be the arm over here. So I just made this design up. Okay, here we go. I want the rectangle tool, which is found where the circle tool is. Click the rectangle tool. I'm going to just draw it over here somewhere. I'm not exactly sure the scale, so I'm just kind of eyeballing it, and I'm going to choose a value that looks good. So let's just say I'm looking in the lower right-hand corner, 22 by 6 millimeters. Looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and click to create that rectangle. I can change this later if I want to, the size, but for now I'm going to leave it that way and just attach it to my circle. So I need to select it first. So I'm going to double click my rectangle now, and I'm going to go ahead and, while I have this selected, create a component. I'm going to call this arm. Now I'm going to use the move tool, and what I want to do is grab it at the center point, the midpoint, if I can find it here. It says midpoint on arm. I'm going to click there to grab it, and then I want to attach that midpoint here. So that lines it up along the same axis here on the red axis. But you can see if I left this the way it is, there would be a gap here when I printed it. It would only be attached right here at that point. So I need to adjust this and move it in slightly. So I'm going to click, and just move along the red axis until it goes inside just slightly. All right, now I need to just check and see what I have as far as total distance from the center to the farthest out point. So I'm going to use the tape measure to do that, because I want to make sure that this is not too large to use in my hand. So 50 was the maximum, but my goal was 45. So I'm going to go ahead and just use this to create a guideline at 45. I have a little point there. That is the farthest out point that I want to have anything in my drawing from the center point. So I have that much space left to create a square for my smiley face. So I don't like that there's not very much room. So I'm going to go ahead and double click inside my rectangle here, and I'm going to change the size by selecting the line over here. And I'm going to use the move tool, grab it anywhere along there, and adjust it in slightly, maybe a couple millimeters. I just adjusted it in 2 millimeters. Okay, that's good. So the last thing I need is the square that's going to be on the end here, and it's going to create my smiley face. So to see how much space I have left, I'm going to click here and then just hover over that dot. So I have a total of 11 millimeters for the rest of my fidget spinner there. So I'm going to go ahead and use the rectangle tool and just create an 11 by 11 square. So 11, comma, 11, enter. Now I'm going to go ahead and make this a component by double clicking it, right click, and make component. I'm going to call this the head. And then I'm going to move this into place with the move tool. I'm going to grab it by the midpoint and attach it to the other midpoint over here. So everything's lined up nice and neat. All right, now in my example drawing, oops, I just grabbed it again. Anytime you're in a tool doing something you don't want to do, just click escape. It's a key on your keyboard in the upper left-hand corner, and it will stop doing whatever that is. All right, so in the example drawing, I had these rounded corners. So I'm going to try to do that in this. It didn't work in class, but I'm going to try it again. I'll just try it with one corner and see what happens. So in class, we're going to do a 2 millimeter rounded. So I'm using the tape measure. I'm going to go to the 2 millimeter mark from the corner and each direction. So I'm going to click there and go this other direction, 2 millimeters. So I'll do it on the other corner as another example. So click in the corner to start it, go 2 millimeters, click again, in 2 millimeters. 2 millimeters would be right there. Whoops, I want to undo that. I think that's 2 millimeters. So I can just use that as a guide point. So I'm just creating snapping points in my drawing that I can use to create the corners. So let's try the arc tool. This is a 2-point arc, and our goal was to just round these corners by using this tool. So I'm going to click on one guide point, go to the opposite side, and then we're going to try to, on the face, I'm going to make sure that you're on the face, and once you get the screen tip, you're going to type in the value. So it has to be less than 1 millimeter. This is where I don't think it's going to work. So let's type in 0.75. Let's try that. 0.75, oops, 5, enter. Okay, so you get this error. Number of segments is too large for given angle and radius. So in other words, in order to create this arc, the line segments would be too small for this program. It's a limitation of the free version of SketchUp that we're using. So we just have to work with what we have. So if you see this tip, this warning, you just have to click OK, and then unfortunately you can't create that arc. I'm going to try a different method to create it. I'm not going to give up yet. So if we can't make an arc, we're going to try to make a circle. So I'm going to just go here, and I know this is a 2 millimeter measurement, so I'm just going to go 2 millimeters in and create a guide point there. And we're going to see if we can create a circle instead of an arc. So I'm going to go to where the rectangle tool is, select the circle tool, click on that new guide point. I'm going to go all the way up to my guide point, and there I can create a circle, but for some reason I can't create an arc. But we're going to go ahead and go with this method to create the shape that we want. I'm going to go ahead and click outside of here, and let me see if that is in there. So this, I forgot to double click before we started drawing. It's a very important step. So what we have is a component, and then what I did is I drew a circle outside of the component, which is not what I want to do. So if I want to go now to try to erase, I can erase the circle, but I want it to cut off there. It's not going to. It's going to erase the entire circle. So I'm going to go ahead and just double click. I got rid of that circle on purpose. I'm going to double click my component this time. So now I'm inside the component. I'll draw my circle. And what I'm going to do now is go ahead and just create a couple guidelines here. So I need one that's going in 2 millimeters and then up 2 millimeters from there. I'm going to go ahead and create another one over here, 2 millimeters, and then in 2 millimeters. Same way over here. I already got that one. Never mind. Escape. Click here, 2 millimeters in. So this is going to work for this, even though it takes a long time. I'm going to go and create 2 millimeter circles all the way over here. Each corner is going to get one. Okay, now I can use that to erase the things I don't want to keep. So I'm going to click here and hopefully just get rid of this inside of the circle there. Then I want to get rid of this line here. Whoops. I might need to zoom in to get rid of these. You get the idea. I don't know why they made the click point so small. So hard to use this tool. All right, so we don't have to worry about the guidelines because they're not actually lines. Any extra lines would cause an issue, but because they're imaginary, they're just guidelines. I'm not going to bother with deleting them. So now we have our basic shapes for all of our components. And then we're going to now start making these three-dimensional. So I'm going to click on the original. Actually, it's double click to get inside. That's the first step. When you're editing a component, you want to double click to get inside the component. It's like having a project inside a project. So I'm double clicking to get inside that. I'm going to push pull this. And our bearing thickness is 7 millimeters. So I'm going to make that exactly 7 millimeters. I'm done with that for now. So I'm going to click outside that with a pointer tool and select my next object, which is the arm. And I'm going to make this a different size. So it's not all going to be the same height. So if that was 7, I'm going to make this, let's go 5. So 5 millimeters is 2 millimeters short from the top. And to make this symmetrical, I'm going to go ahead and then make it 2 millimeters short on the bottom. So I'm going to push pull this up 2 millimeters. So we're 2 millimeters from the top and 2 millimeters from the bottom of our donut thing here. Now I'm going to click the pointer tool to get outside of the component, orbit back around. I'm going to push pull this next object, so I need to double click to get inside that, use the push pull tool, And then this one I'm going to make just slightly smaller than the original height there. So that's going to be 6 millimeters instead of 7. So since I did 1 millimeter less than on the top, I'm going to go ahead and shorten this by 1 millimeter on the bottom. So I have our basic design. All right, in class we did some artwork on these. I drew a lightning bolt on the arm and then drew a smiley face on the head. But for sake of time, I'm going to skip that part, and we're just going to focus on copying and rotating these components. So what we want to do first is create a center point by creating just a circle, and it doesn't matter the size. You'll see why in just a minute. We're just going to use this to maintain a center point as we copy our arm and our head. So I'm going to use the copy tool. Actually, I want to select the objects first. I want to copy the center circle. I'm going to hold the Shift key down. I'm going to add to the selection the arm and the head. Now I'm done selecting objects. I'm going to go to the Move tool. Press Control one time to make sure I'm in copy mode. I'm just going to move my mouse around to make sure I have that plus symbol. And then I'm going to copy it. Doesn't matter where you grab it because we're just going to make some copies. So I'm just going to click there, click the Control key again to get in copy mode, and make a couple more copies. Control again, copy it again. So now I have a total of 4, which is what I want to have. Now I'm going to rotate. And since this one's already selected, we're going to start with that one. So you want to have all 3 items selected again, so we're rotating all of them. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the Rotate tool, which is found where the Move tool is. Click on that Rotate, find the center point of this circle, click on it to grab it there. Actually, we're going to just define that we're going to rotate it from there. And then it doesn't really matter where you grab it. I'm just saying from this point, I just clicked there, rotate it, and then we're going to go 90 degrees. So just rotate in either direction, and then we're going to type in 90, enter. Now I need to move this into place. So I'm going to go back to where the Rotate tool is and grab the Move tool. I'm going to click on the center of the circle, which is very important. I want to place it from this center and attach it over here. Find either the origin or the center of that circle and click. So we placed one arm and head. So now we just need to repeat those steps. So I'm going to go ahead and select now the next circle, arm and head. Go to the Rotate tool. Let's go ahead and attach it to the center point here. Grab any point, rotate it in the direction you want to rotate, then type in the value 90. All right, now we're going to go ahead and move it. Oh, it zoomed in too far. I'm going to grab the center point, attach it to the point of origin or the center of the circle. I just have one left. So let's go back and select the items. Make sure you deselect by just clicking anywhere. And now you can select your new items, which is the circle. Hold the Shift key down. Select the other items. Go to Rotate. This one I want to rotate 180 degrees in the opposite direction. So I'm going to click here to the center, grab anywhere as like an arm. Then we want to go 180 degrees. So it doesn't matter which way you're rotating because it's going to go all the way the opposite way. So 180, enter. Then grab the Move tool again. Grab that center. Place it over here. So now we're done. So the next thing that I want to do is make sure that all of these are solids, and then we're going to combine it into one solid. So I'm going to go click here. I'm just going to click a few things to make sure everything is a solid component. If you don't have a solid component, it just says a group or component, then that means there might be an extra line in there that you'll need to find and delete it, because you can only have something that defines a solid. So all of these are solids. So what I'm going to do now is use the solid editing tools, which is a new tool. And we're going to select either one of the first two. They both combine solids. So I'll just go ahead and go with the first one. So here I'm just going to be clicking on solids that are connected. So the arm is connected to the head, and then that's connected to the center, and then that's connected to another arm and a head, and then we have another arm and a head. So all of these are being combined into one solid. Everything's selected, good to go. Everything says solid group. I'm going to select the selection tool and just deselect, and then make sure, click on it one more time, make sure that's a solid. So this is a printable fidget spinner. So that concludes our kind of little tutorial on how to create a fidget spinner, and hopefully you can have a little bit more creativity, time, do some more artwork on yours, all that good stuff. Have fun.